So the foreign key is going to be our next step on adding a little bit more complexity to our ERDs. Now the foreign keys should sound familiar from last week. We mentioned them when we were talking about the identifiers in general. So if you remember, the identifiers are any attributes that are unique, such that you can identify a particular record by the value that is inside of that cell, that particular record. So unique values might be a name, it might be an identified number like a driver's license. There's going to be sometimes multiple candidate keys inside of a table. The primary key is the one awesome one that we've identified that meets our criteria, that it is going to be simple, it will not change, we know for a fact it's going to be unique. Usually we want these to be numeric, so your database is a little bit faster. And that's kind of a best practice thing, but not always necessary. They preferably are also simple and not composite, but again, not completely necessary. Now, our foreign keys are complementary to our primary keys in that they're actually the primary keys from another table. This is how relational models are so versatile and so awesome, because we can take two different tables and connect them together using the foreign keys. And that way we can break up information and reference it really, really fast. Instead of having to like go down, like if you think of the hierarchical model, you're going from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. You don't have to do that because you can just add in that foreign key and you can zip to the right spot immediately. So this is really cool, even though it's super simple. So the way that we do this is that you can see on this diagram, we have department as a table. It has a department ID. That's the primary key. You can tell because it has a nice, neat little underline under it. Employee table also has its own identifier, which is the emp ID. Again, nice underline. And you can see here, there's a department ID that has a dashed underline. We know that's a foreign key because of the dash and because it's a duplicate name from the department table. So one of the rules that you can maybe gather from just the diagram itself, and also my clip-arty drawing of this bird with the arrow, is that the foreign key is always going to be on the many side of the one-to-many relationship. Okay, so it connects the one to the many in that order. If you think of the Venn diagram with the crow's feet, right, with the little 3 lines I have on the employee, with a crow and gravity, the primary key is going to fall down the crow and land at its feet. I know, it's kind of lame, but it is authentically how I think of it and how I remember it. So why are these important, or where have we seen them already, which kind of marks them as important? So if you think back to what we talked about with the dependent and or weak and strong entities. So if employee was a weak entity to the department, for example, we would also see a directional relationship here from the strong to the weak. The weak entity is the one that will always have the foreign key, always. So that is one of the definitions of the weak entity, is that it must contain a foreign key from another table. So if we're thinking about the employee and their dependents, the dependent, if you looked at the employee data and the dependent data, the table for the dependents would actually have a column in there saying employee ID, and which would tell you, if you clicked on that, it'd tell you all the information about the employees themselves. In this example, if you look at the table for the department, it doesn't have the employee IDs on there, all the different employees that could possibly be in that department. Instead, each employee has a little thing that says, I belong to this department, right? It has the department ID. You follow that and you find out everything else about their department, including all the other employees that are on there.